Alright, so this is the down for the new camera system. So for starters, we'll just drag in a new camera volume, fresh new. Boop. You'll see he has three major components: inner box, outer box, and spring arm. Camera's attached to it, but in general, you should just kind of forget the camera's there. Do your work through the spring arm. The majority of your work. And when you go back to the parent, you'll find these 5 attributes. There's an outer volume enter, outer volume exit, inner volume enter, and inner volume exit. And view target. So these are used to change the camera states throughout the game. So as you can see, we'll zoom in a little bit and scale the outer box. Or inner box, sorry. So outer box, way bigger. Inner box, itty bitty in the center there. Also notice how they have different widths. The outer box will always have a larger line width than the inner box. It's small, but hopefully it'll help. And in general, they will be inside of each other, so that should make it fairly clear about which one's the inner box. So you have these 5 attributes. And if you click on these, it's an enum. So first person with view target, and free camera. Oh, and no change. So if you don't want to do anything, just do no change. So anytime you trigger one of these events, either you enter the outer volume, so when you enter the outer volume, the first one is triggered. When you enter the inner volume, this one gets triggered. When you exit the inner volume, this one gets triggered. When you exit the outer volume, this one gets triggered. So for most of the cases, you'll want to do, when you leave the outer volume, you want to put it back to your default, which in most cases can be third. When you enter the inner volume, that's when you'll actually do your special effect. So we'll do first person. So run through this right here. I left him visible so you can see him in-game right now quick. So I get close to him. I'm now inside the outer volume. Enter it. I'm in first person. When I enter the outer volume, or exit the outer volume, sorry, boop, I go back to third. So as I entered, I touched this first inner box, which was programmed to do first person. When I exited the outer box, I got third person. So here's the actual 4 major types that you can do with this. This box on the right here is the normal, just changing it to third person that you just saw us make. Outer volume exit, third person. Inner volume enter, first person. This one I included to demo something very specific. If you try to change your state to the state you're already currently in, it will effectively be no change. If you are in the third person camera state and you say go to third person camera state, the program will automatically just ignore it. So make sure that you're paying attention to this won't do anything if you're presently there. And this one is largely the same thing, but now you have third person with view target. And we've targeted that blue car. This one is now a free camera. And this fourth crazy one is I was demoing that the inner volume doesn't necessarily have to be inside the inner box, the outer volume. So for here, what happens is when you enter the inner volume on the left here, you go into free camera. So that's this camera that's hanging out over here. And then when you enter the outer volume on the far side, you go third person. So this is useful for long hallways. We'll see as we run into it. Alright, so here's the first person volume we mentioned before. So I've touched the outer volume, nothing happens. If I touch the inner volume, I go into first person. When I exit the outer volume, third. This one is set to third person. I'm already in third person, so nothing happens no matter how I touch it. Third person with view target. As you can see, the camera now wants to look at that one car. It needs a direct line of sight to it, and it needs to be fairly strong. So use this first if you want the character to look at like certain weenies in the distance. But be careful with various like narrow or tight angles, this will not work well on. And when you enter it, exit it, it goes back to third person. See, I'm no longer sticky to the car. We'll enter this volume, and I'm in free. Go ahead and leave. Oh, sorry. Yep, camera system has some kinks to work out. And now here's the weird camera volume, where the inner is actually way over here. I'm walking along. Even though the volume's way over here, where my dog is now, this is where I started it, I will stay in free person until I go over here, back to the other volume, and now I'm back in third. So there's the 4 major types that you can make with. But feel free to go crazy. These don't have to be this way, so feel free to experiment with whatever your purposes need. But these are the 5 major cases that you'll use them. Setting a very specific first-person route, a very specific third, a weenie thing if you want the target to look at something, a free camera, and then splitting the volumes to do something like a hallway.